Hello, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the Pursuing Horizons podcast. Today, I'm speaking with Krysta, and we're speaking about having a child, prioritizing your life after having a kid. And she's actually in the process of preparing for a bodybuilding competition. So, we're going to talk about the struggles within that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on today. I'm looking forward to this chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
No problem. So everybody has to give some backstory, a little hero's journey or a villain origin story, whichever one suits your fancy. So yeah, just some backstory as to who you are, what got you into fitness, why you wanted to get into coaching, and your education and everything.
Okay. So my name is Krista. I have very much been in the fitness industry for many years, but not necessarily in the way that I am now. So I started from the bottom when I was about 14, and I really struggled with mental health. And along with that, I had a lot of body dysmorphia and was just very uncomfortable with who I was. So as I got older, I decided that I wanted to find a way to number one, help myself, but also to help others because I knew so many other people were struggling with similar situations. So I went to Nate and I did my PFT mainly for myself so I could feel a little bit more confident in the gym and try to figure out kind of what I needed to do to help myself.
Hmm.
And then from there, I decided that I really liked it and I wanted to stick with personal training and make that my future career that I wanted to step into. And I've very much just stayed on the track of trying to help my clients with mental health, and creating a good community around that.
Nice. So when did you said you got into fitness when you were like you said 14?
Yeah.
So have you been working out pretty consistently since then?
Yeah, pretty much. So I played soccer since I was like 4 years old. I was always playing club soccer.
Cool.
And when I was around 14, I decided that I wanted to not only have something as a team, but I wanted to do something more for myself as an individual.
Yeah. And how did you find that transition? Like playing for sport, but playing with like more of like an outcome in mind, and then going to just like working out. How was that transition for you?
I would say that I wasn't exactly loving having to play with the idea of winning close to the end of
Hmm.
when I stopped playing soccer. And I more so wanted to do something as an individual to challenge myself and really challenge my anxiety to step out of my comfort zone. So it was an interesting transition and it was challenging, but I would say it was very rewarding to see myself grow and overcome my anxieties.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's cool having the sport background because obviously you would have done a bunch of training within that too. So it's not like when you were getting into working out, you had never really done any kind of movement or exercise before. So it probably made that whole process a little bit easier. The next question I was going to have for you is Nate. How did you find the whole Nate program? Because I know that you and I have that in common. So, how was your experience there? And did it make you really want to get into training, or did you feel some hesitation coming out of Nate getting into coaching?
So I would say that Nate is a good program. A lot of great people there, a lot of good information that you can get from it. I really like that they do the practicums. I felt like that set me up for like kind of having my foot in the door and feeling like I had a bit of experience behind me. And as for training, I obviously gained a lot of information around training and periodization, essentially just how to train your clients for success.
Hmm.
But I do feel like, and this might be common with really any career when you're coming out of school, but I felt like we were very much just like thrown into the world after and just had to kind
Yeah,
of build a name for ourselves.
yeah. Sometimes you have to get tossed into the fire, and you kind of just have to like. That's when you gain the most knowledge and when you make the most mistakes. But that's like the most, I think, the most pinnacle for your career is like that first year when you get out of school.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like, it was a challenge, but it was good.
Yeah, because like everybody that I talk to kind of says the same thing, like that they all really liked the NATE program. I think the one benefit of doing that is that it was a program that was specific for personal training, whereas if you went more the kinesiology route, I think from what I kind of view kinesiology as, is it's like that segue course towards physio towards chiro. Maybe it's some sort of like AT stuff, like athletic therapy, whatever it is. And I feel like it's kind of that the in between. Whereas like when we went to PFT, like you were going there because you wanted to be a personal trainer.
Yes, definitely. I feel like that is one of the pros of it, is you're not like I understand why people like doing kinesiology because you obviously understand a lot about the body, but the PFT course was good because you're very focused on just being a trainer.
Yeah. So what was one of the things that you took out of school that you feel like you really use a ton? And what was one of the things that you thought you would take but don't use at all?
That's actually a really good question. I think that one of the main things I took out of school would be just like building rapport with
Hmm.
clients, and understanding like networking and being more confident with like talking to other people and learning from other people. I think
Hmm.
that Nate actually really taught me to step out of my comfort zone and just try to find out as much information as I can.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought I would probably use more and don't is just like the systems behind everything, all of the like assessment stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually funny because I think I told you that I was at one of the meetings recently for the Nate committee stuff. And we talked about like things that they wanted feedback on it. So one of the things that I actually said was like I think they need more focus on soft skills. Because I know a lot of trainers, not that you and I are like this, I don't think, but good coaches, but they're like a walking cardboard.
Yes, definitely.
Like they can't talk to people, and I feel like they really lack when it comes to those communication skills. So I was just suggesting like, hey, like maybe it's beneficial to have a little bit more emphasis on the soft skills, on the mindset coaching component of it, any of that stuff too, because I feel like we touched upon a little bit, but for most of my clients, and I'm sure you can relate too, the mindset is usually probably one of the biggest issues when it comes to anyone that you work with. Because like, I mean, for the most part, like the nutrition stuff, if you really simplify it, it isn't super complicated. And then when it comes to the working out too, I mean, it's so progressive, but I feel like most people either make progress or they don't because of certain beliefs that they're attached to.
Yeah, definitely. I think it is very much also being from like an advocate for mental health. I very much value being able to connect with my clients and have that like open door and welcoming community kind of vibe. So I think that the course could definitely benefit from just sharing a little bit more perspective on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think it's really good that they run this kind of thing because, well, I know that Nate is highly recognized when it comes to personal training, and they're actually in the process of trying to rename the course. I don't know if that's like, I think it's pretty known that they're trying to rename the course because they want it to be more recognized as possibly a course that could have somebody go to university and continue, or it could be a good like standalone course, which I think is really cool. Because I know some people that they finish it and they actually wanted to go the kines route, or some people that finish it were like, "Okay, I'm cool being a coach now." But I think it's great that they're so receptive to even changing the curriculum because that's one thing that makes it really beneficial to go.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like in this field, everything is constantly evolving. So they also need to keep things up to date.
Yeah, staying current is like super important.
Yes.
So for you, we'll kind of jump into like the main talking points for today. So, um, when did you have your son? We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about how your life changed beforehand and what it was like getting back into the routine, and how has that whole transition and process been? In turn, now you're prepping for a show. Like, let's talk about all of that. I think it's just super interesting and good to talk about.
Okay. So I had my son in January of 2024, so he's just over a year old now.
Hmm.
I would say that I've always been very outdoorsy, like hiking, just constantly on the move. So it was definitely something that was mentally challenging, just knowing, okay, I'm gonna have a baby, I'm gonna have to slow down a little bit. Also, just being in the gym all the time, I was worried that it would be a big challenge to obviously stay in my like consistent routine of going to the gym all the time. So prior to having him, it was very much a big topic of conversation between me and my husband that we didn't want our lives to completely change just because we're having a baby, and we made a promise to ourselves that we would still do everything that we love to do and we wouldn't let having a baby stop us from doing that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
So once he was here, honestly, we just stuck to that. It was hard, especially like going through the postpartum phase and kind of having to relearn who I was as a person.
Hmm.
I struggled with that a lot, but we just stuck to it. We made sure that we still went camping lots, went hiking,
Hmm.
and got to the gym. So it was definitely a transition, but I think that we pretty much nailed it.
Tell me about the postpartum phase. Let's as much as you want to share, but I think that's something that you hear about all the time online, and I feel like it could be good to talk about your story behind it and maybe shed some perspective on it too.
Yeah, totally. For my postpartum phase, I would say it was rough. I don't want to like sugarcoat anything because I think a lot of people do. But you're essentially like your whole body has changed, your whole life has changed. So I would say that I definitely did struggle a bit with postpartum depression. And I, of course, had anxiety before having a baby, so my anxiety was just heightened during that period.
Hmm.
So I had to just kind of take a step back and figure out what was going to be best for me from a mental standpoint. So pretty much just trying to accept who I was as a mom now with a changed body. It was hard, but I think that it has really built my character and just taught me how to love myself for who I am. And it's also been a fun challenge to try to get myself back to the point where I was before having a baby, physically and mentally. And I would say
Hmm.
that now I'm in a way better space physically and mentally than I was before.
How did you go about finding out who you were?
That's challenging. I think it's just really letting yourself take the time to go through the highs and lows. And I think that going to the vault and being a trainer there has really helped me find my people and just understand what I want from life a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think I'm still kind of always finding myself.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer. And I think like kind of in lieu of the name of the podcast, right? I think it's like we're pursuing the horizon in a sense, right? Like we're always looking to improve and like we're always looking to move forward in some way, shape. But I think it's good to have some awareness as to like how you're feeling, process it all, work through it all. Um, and like I think just like let it suck.
Yeah, totally.
I think a lot of people like whenever they're going through stuff, they tend to like again, I'm all for utilizing perspective because I think perspective is super important, but I do think that within doing that, sometimes what we do is we really like null down how we're feeling when it's okay that it's kind of shitty. It's okay that it sucks. It's a lot like you're allowed to feel that way. And I think within like not letting yourself process those things, oftentimes it creates more issues down the road.
I
So
would
I do
agree with
think
that.
that it's yeah, and I think it's a process that like most people just tend to avoid. So I think it's good that you just let yourself kind of work through that.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to embrace the suck.
That's we need that on a t-shirt. Yeah. So I've seen you guys work out at the gym now, and like you guys pretty much just play like hot potato with your baby and your son
Yep.
virtually, and we love Beckham, right? But um, was that like was that challenging, like having you guys try to get back into the gym? Because I know for you, like you mentioned that you like liked the gym before, and I'm not sure about Austin, but like I think I would assume so. So like having to work out with your son there, was that like quite an adjustment for you? If so, like how'd that process go? And because I know you guys are pretty good with it now, like you do a
Yeah.
set, he watches the kid, he does a set, you watch the kid, but I'm sure it wasn't always like that.
No, definitely not. We've figured out our systems now. But Austin was always into the gym before too, and we very much prioritized working out together as much as we could because I was working kind of crazy hours, doing early mornings before, so the weekends were our time to work out together. And
Hmm.
then when I went on maternity leave and I was coming back to the gym, we wanted to try to take as much time as we could together. So that meant going to the gym together. But Beckham was colic when he was younger. So it was very challenging being at the gym with him, just screaming his head off some days, and we had to cut some of them short. But I think it was still worth trying instead of one of us being at home with him, just going kind of insane from him screaming all the time. So it did take a while, and we definitely did fight a little bit. I would say more on my part than him, just going through all of the changes postpartum. It was hard also feeling like I had the gym kind of taken away from me in a sense, but I
Hmm.
knew that I would rather it that way than to be there all by myself and know that Austin's struggling at home with our baby. So it took us quite a while to get our system going, and I think a big part of it was just kind of waiting for Beckham to grow up a little bit and be more independent.
So how long did you guys because you guys tried that and then you waited and then you tried again. How long was it?
Um, I would say we kind of just always pushed through it as much as we could.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty consistent, but I would say it wasn't until he was probably close to 9 months when we made our way over to the vault that we figured out a pretty good system. And I think a big part of that was we felt a lot more comfortable there. And we knew that we were in a good community that supported us and wanted to be there for us. So it really
Hmm.
helped us to just de stress and relax a little bit. And I think Beckham also felt that and just could enjoy himself more.
Yeah, because he's quite social, so that's
Yes.
good. Yeah. So for you, like obviously now that I would say you have some more of your independence back now, right? You are working for your business, you're now prepping for a show and everything. That's okay. How for you, like what is this whole process looking like through your prep? Also, I have a dog too, so it's okay. It happens.
Okay. Sorry, we just have a whole bunch of neighbor kids that love to come into our house.
That's
Um,
okay.
so I would say now with leading up into prep, I am a little bit nervous that I'm not gonna have as much time to focus on
Yeah,
myself, but
that's okay.
so I know that I need to kind of make a better system to just get my like lifts in and make sure I'm having quality lifts. But
Yeah, yeah.
also like I'm gonna have to make time to do cardio and stuff too.
Hmm.
So I think that prepping for a show is honestly gonna help me a little bit to know that I have that independence again because
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to take that time to be on my own. And it's hard with mom guilt and everything, but I know that this is gonna be the best time to challenge myself with that.
So I guess we can kind of like backpedal a little bit and also unpack some of that too. So you just mentioned the mom guilt, but also like we'll talk about the mom guilt, but also what sets your eyes on competing. So like, because I think that's an interesting thing to want to do after, and I think that's great, but like what made you want to do it? And then how did you work through the mom guilt that you're explaining?
So I would say, so first with the mom guilt, because I feel like that's just a pretty common thing with being a new parent, especially a mom, because I feel like we're just quite attached to our littles. But it's one of those feelings where it's almost like you need to give your all to your child 100% of the time.
Hmm.
And just not realizing that you still are your own person. And if you don't give yourself the energy and time that you need, you're not going to be able to give everything to your child either. So I
Hmm.
think getting over the mom guilt, it's just been kind of a mental game for me, just telling myself, okay, I need to do this for myself to be there for him. And that's helped me to kind of unpack all of that. As for competing, I never had my eye on doing a competition before. It was one of those things where I kind of looked at it and I was like, ah, it's just not for me, doesn't fit with my goals. I'm content with where I'm at.
Hmm.
I liked the muscle that I was building. I just didn't see it being a thing for me. And it was actually when I came over to the vault and I saw all the people there, and obviously people that had competed before, like Destiny and Jesse, Noli. It was very much a moment for me where I was like, oh, these girls are awesome. Like they've done this for themselves. They look absolutely amazing. It seems like such a fulfilling thing to like challenge yourself with and get up on stage in front of all of those people. So it kind of just clicked in my head and I was like, I want to try it. I think like I don't have anything to lose and it would be a good challenge for me.
What have been the biggest obstacles thus far?
I would say like there hasn't really been anything that's too crazy for me. It's pretty much just a better build off of what I was currently doing, just focusing a little bit more on my macros and trying to push the intensity in my training a little bit more.
Hmm.
The training style is definitely different, going with more of like the shoulder and glute focus, where I was really like building my quads before. So just little things like that that were adjustments for me. But stuff that I'm all very content with and trusting the process. But I think the most challenging part would honestly just be eating enough food. So a
And
big challenge.
you're competing in November?
Yeah, November 1st is what we're aiming for.
That's, I guess it's not super close yet. Hey? That's still another like 4-ish months away, 5 months away.
Yeah, not close, but it's coming up quick.
Yeah. So to kind of dive back into some more of the mom stuff, because I feel like that's like really good talking points here. I feel like a lot of people would experience the mom guilt that you're explaining, probably closely in tie with the postpartum stuff, right?
Yeah,
And having a little bit of like an identity crisis. Again, like I'm not a mom, but so I can't really say that I relate from experience, but um, I could see that being very challenging, especially once you have had the child, you spent lots of time with them through that extremely codependent phase, right? And trying to regain a sense of who you are. Um, what would be some advice that you'd give to someone who is maybe like trying to do this stuff? Like maybe not compete, but trying to get out more, socialize more, do more hobbies that fill their cup, and maybe they're having troubles with that.
I would say that my number one piece of advice and something I wish somebody else had maybe told me, instead of having to figure it out on my own, would just be that, like, exactly what we were saying before is like, you can't give your all to your kid if you're not fulfilled. If you're absolutely drained and you're not letting yourself have time to rest and taking care of yourself, then you're really just impacting your child at that point. So
Hmm.
you need to fill your cup before you pour into others.
How did you differentiate or learn to differentiate being a mom versus being Krista?
Um, I think that's a very good question. I don't think that I really would say I've like figured out two separate sides of it. I
Hmm.
would say I've just learned to morph into being my best version of both.
Okay, that's a good answer. Let's talk about that.
I think like as a person that you were before having a baby and
Hmm.
as who you are now, it's you're still going to do the things that you loved to do before. So like for me it was going to the gym and like hiking and stuff like that, and that kind of comes back to the point of not letting our lives change after having a baby. I feel like I very much just tried to carry on as much as I wanted to, like the aspects of my life that I felt were healthy and wanted to bring forward with me. I feel like I've done a really good job of meshing that with just now including Beckham and everything, honestly. I don't think that I've really had to change myself to be a mom, but I think being a mom has just made me a better person.
So do you think without trying to like solve this problem because it does, I'm not trying to solve it here, but do you think that maybe part of the issue just lies with people trying to have them be separate instead of having them just kind of be this thing where like it is joined, it is connected, you are just kind of both. And maybe there's this like an identity crisis of them trying to pick one over the other.
I think that's definitely a good way to look at it. I think that is the case for a lot of people. They think, okay, now I've had a baby, I can't do this or I can't do that. And they just have all of these expectations set for themselves. And they aren't staying true to themselves at that point. They're just trying to essentially create this version of themselves that will please society and like meet society's norms. So like for me it was a big thing, bringing Beckham to the gym. I was like, people are going to hate on me for having my baby in the gym in like an unsafe environment and stuff. But it's what works for us. It's what I enjoy. I like spending time with him. So you just kind of have to ignore what's on the outside and stay true to yourself.
Yeah. No, I think that those are all some great points too, and I think it really ties into how important it is to be in a good environment because, like, let's say you were working at a gym where they didn't want Beckham there, or maybe people were complaining about you having Beckham there, then I envision that you probably would have a different experience trying to raise him, or for you guys co-parenting there, for example, right? Um, for let's say someone who's I don't know, like let's say someone who's trying to get into competing, um, and they've had a kid and they're having trouble. What would be some advice that you'd want to give to them?
I think that for anybody that wants to compete, for me personally, I looked at myself after having a baby and being in, like, I was probably around 9 months postpartum when I first had the idea of competing. And I looked at myself and thought there was no way I would ever be able to step on stage. Not that I felt like my body wasn't good enough, but I just felt like my body had changed in ways that didn't necessarily suit the style that would do good. So I think for anybody that wants to challenge themselves and try to compete, it's very much just a mental game of knowing that you're good enough and knowing that you can get to wherever you want to be. It's just consistency and like staying committed to it.
Yeah. To kind of switch gears here just a little bit, let's talk about your personal training career. Um, how has that whole process been with being a relatively new parent still, and trying to grow your business and trying to balance everything? I feel like that's probably a very common thing for business owners in general, like the stresses of trying to run your own business, let alone being a mom to a fairly young child still.
Yeah, definitely. It's come with its challenges for sure, but I would say that it's all been for the best. Before having Beckham, I was at a box gym where we had worked together, and I
Hmm.
knew that was not my end goal for me. I very much wanted to try to find a way out of it. I just didn't know what direction I wanted to go. And I think when I left to go on maternity leave, I was very much feeling like I didn't even know if training was for me because it just pushed me in that direction where I was like, I don't think I could make a lifestyle out of this. Like, I'm not having fun anymore. And
Hmm.
it just didn't seem like it was going to fit my lifestyle because I was being pushed to try to hit hours that didn't satisfy my personal life. And it just wasn't very fun.
Hmm.
So when I decided that I wanted to start working again, Beckham was about 6 months old. And I just decided I was going to start doing part time training on my own. I already had some stuff set up from before I even went to the box gym. So I didn't have to worry about too much. I just kind of could get going again because my goal before that was to start my own business. So I had already made those small steps, but I just hadn't made the big jump. So trying to make the time to essentially just get all my ducks in a row was the hardest part with having Beckham around. And Austin and I very much were just like passing him off on our schedules, trying to get as many clients in as I could, and trying to get all the admin and behind the scenes stuff done in any spare time that I had. But I would say after a couple of months is when I had actually talked to Cody at the vault,
Nice.
and he got me to come in, and I talked to Jesse because he said that Jesse also has a kid and she's made it work. So once I talked to her, I was like, I know this is gonna be the place where I can grow. And that's when I was like, I'm just gonna jump in, go full time, and whatever happens, happens. I know that we're in a place where we can make things work either way. But jumping into it, I know that I just have to give it my all, and I'm not gonna fail. So I think going to the vault was very much the thing that changed my perspective on like if training was for me, and it just proved to me that I'm in the perfect place and I'm right where I want to be.
How did you convince yourself to take the leap?
I think it wasn't as much convincing myself. It was more so Austin pushing me to do it. So he's always been very supportive of all of my decisions. And he knew that having my own personal training business was something that I had in the back of my head from the very beginning when I started Nate.
Hmm.
So I brought up the idea to him after I met with Cody, and I was like, hey, this is kind of my option. I do this or I stay where I'm at. And he was like, why don't you just try it? Like, what do you have to lose? So he essentially just proved to me that even if it didn't work out, we'd still be fine. And I think another big factor for me that was really the deciding factor was I knew if I pursued my own business, I would be able to spend more time with Beckham. And that means less time in daycare and just more family time, which is really important to me.
Yeah, and you mentioned a good point before too about like the commercial gym. And I think, well, like everybody that I talk to, I tell them how I think important it is to have that time being in a commercial gym,
Yeah.
but it's good to get to a point where you realize that that's like not your forever. I think it can be a really good stepping stone, and you could learn a lot. You can develop a lot of skills to become more confident as a coach. But I do think eventually, like if you, especially if you want to make a career of this and stay in it long term, I do believe confidently that working for yourself is going to always be the best option, or doing something in tandem with somebody else, right? Where you
Yeah.
can set your own hours, work your own schedule. Like for you, there's a lot of benefit with this too, because you can set the hours that you want to work.
Yeah, definitely. I think just being able to choose your own schedule was kind of the biggest thing to me. But coming from a box gym, I knew that I was going there just to gain experience, and I almost felt like I was at a point where I was kind of plateaued. There wasn't a lot
Hmm.
of new opportunities there for like professional development and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I just felt like things were kind of slowing down for me, and I had gained a lot of experience and lots of new information at the beginning, but I it was at a point where I was kind of just ready to step out.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of like other little pressures that come alongside being in a commercial space. Like you mentioned before too, like hour quotas, they have like certain like corporate metrics that you're supposed to be hitting. And I think it takes a lot of joy out of the job
Yes,
because you feel like you're having to perform.
definitely. It seems
And
like a
then,
very
yeah.
exciting thing at the beginning, and then it just quickly slows down, and you realize that you are just a number and
Hmm.
they don't really care what's going on in your life. They just want to make as much money as they can. So it's kind of a hard realization once you think that you found such a good job that it really doesn't matter to them.
Yeah. What would you say for yourself was the most impactful and like helpful throughout your whole period of having your son getting back into coaching? Like, what helped support you guys through that whole thing? What was the most impactful within that?
I would say the most impactful would be more so like a time frame of when I made the jump from Evolve North to the Vault. I think that coming to the Vault, I just really found my community. I made a lot
Hmm.
of new friends, and I think just being in an environment where you can really grow and all the trainers want to help you, and there's just so much more opportunity to learn and gain experience. So I think that really just coming to the vault was the most impactful moment in my journey.
Yeah. No, it's been cool, obviously, because obviously we worked together at Mavati, but we never really chat much there because I feel like everyone there. It's funny because we're all a team, but I felt like we were all also so isolated.
Yes.
Like a lot of us didn't, apart from like when we were at work, not many of us actually like talked or socialized or mingled much.
Yeah.
But I feel like you've kind of alluded to it quite a few times here. Like the environment and the culture is just so different at the vault, and I feel like a lot of people there like develop true friendships and true relationships out of it. Like me and Rob, for example, or like you and Jesse and Destiny, for example, too. Like I feel like a lot of people find their crew, which is cool, and it's cool to see that like you can get that from a place of work.
Yeah, definitely. I think also with a lot of the box gyms, it's very like people are almost competing with each other. And yeah, the vault, it's like nothing's a competition. It's just everybody is there to support each other and wants you to do good. So
Yeah, yeah. You guys sound like you have a very popular house.
yes, all the little kids come and try to play with Becca. So
He's a celebrity. He's a local celebrity.
yeah, clearly.
Awesome. So I'll ask you one question. So if you could give one piece of advice to a younger version of you, or one piece of advice to a new mom that's struggling, right? What would you tell them and why?
Mm. I think that any advice that I could give to a new mom would just be that's a hard one. I feel like I have a lot of advice that I would give,
It
but
doesn't have to be one thing, it could be many things.
I think it's really just like trusting the process and knowing that even if you're in a place of struggle, there is going to be a better side. Things will always get better, and just making sure that whether you're struggling by yourself, just staying true to yourself and taking the time for yourself, or the biggest thing for me was I feel like Austin and I had to learn that we very much are a team and we need to work together. We're not there to work against each other. And
Hmm.
once we learned how to work together, things were kind of just easy sailing. So,
Instead of trying to be uh, disagreeing and making things tougher on each other than they need to be.
yeah, like it very much felt like we both thought we were trying to help each other all the time and make things easier on each other, but the other person didn't necessarily see that. So it felt like we were working against each other when we weren't.
Yeah, and like I think you alluded to earlier too, like I think it's very much like it's a learning process, right? Like both for you and for Austin, like your lives are just your lives have changed so much, and I think they are still continuing to change so much that I think it's impossible to be completely ready for what is about to happen, and also like be fully ready for what is going to be happening and changing as you guys grow as a family. So I think it's kind of funny because like most people that you talk to, they try to be like totally ready, but I'm like, there's so many like unpredictable things within having a child, um,
Yeah.
and raising said child because your life just changes so much that I feel like you want to be ready enough, but you can't be perfectly ready.
Yeah, and that's something I always will say to anybody that says that they're not ready for a family or anything along those lines is we never felt ready and we knew that even if we said when we're more financially stable or when we do this, when we do that, as soon as you achieve that, you're going to have other goals in mind and when you're ready is just going to keep getting pushed down the line further and further. So you're never truly going to be ready and you just kind of have to take that chance when you feel like you can.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on today. This was a lot of fun. If people want to stay up to date with you, what you do, or they want to message you about some advice or coaching, where can they do so?
You can follow me at Krysta K Training on Instagram.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.